Welcome to Leadership Beyond Burnout. This is the show where we explore challenges and supports for leaders to prevent and recover from burnout. We have a particular focus upon women in leadership and diverse women. I'm your host, Dr. Kimberly L. Wilson, also known as Dr. Burnout. Now, today's episode is a solo episode and it features data and experiences encountered when leaders or their teams are caring for aging relatives. We're going to explore the complexities of the situation and how to mitigate circumstances to create better outcomes for your loved ones and to allow you to thrive as a leader. Now, I want to begin first by allowing you to reflect upon and appreciate really the nuances and challenges inherent when facing this situation. Let's face it, you have new experiences. There's a lack of support from others that you thought would be there. There are increasing demands on your time as well as your energy, the emotional angst and stress of choices that you need to make that you probably don't even want to make, and the increasing need and exhausting need to research, identify, and expand your knowledge on a myriad of resources, while trying to determine if that relative even qualifies for the benefits, and sometimes even to learn you needed to do stuff years ago. So thank you for your willingness to go on this journey. Now, caring for aging family members, many times it's a delicate negotiation of boundaries and the capacity between career, family relationships, friends, finances, and caregiving responsibilities. It can all become a little bit too much. Now, have you ever experienced the challenges of caring for an aging relative? If you have, take a moment to share a few descriptive words about what that experience has been like for you. I want you to take a moment and reflect that in the comments section, especially sharing some of the caregiving responsibilities, competing priorities, and or conflicting emotions that you experience. Let's kick off today's discussion with some sobering statistics about the aging rate of the baby boomer generation. And as we know, they are, just to define them, born between 1946 and 1964. And no, I am not in that generation. But so, according to the US Census Bureau, approximately 100,000 baby boomers are turning 65 every day. So this trend isn't unique to the United States, it's a global phenomenon. Globally, the United Nations reports that the number of people aged 60 or over is expected to double by 2050, reaching nearly 2.1 billion people. That's a lot. Now, these statistics, they pretty much underline the significance of that demographic shift. That's essentially what we're witnessing. Now, even though these are the priorities, it particularly impacts working women. Now, according to a study by AARP, nearly 60% of caregivers for aging parents are women. And these women are often in the prime of their careers and they face the daunting task of how do I integrate work and caregiving and all my other responsibilities. Often the workforce dynamics are shifting as well. Many women are choosing to reduce their hours, take leaves of absence, and even take leaves of absence and even leave their jobs altogether to ensure that they can provide care for aging relatives. Now, these decisions, they don't just affect women, but they also have broader implications for gender equality in the workplace. So think about that. What if all the women in your workplace essentially decided that they needed to shift and because they need to care for a relative. If we aren't providing support for them in the workplace, then they are going to leave. Now, so do I have your attention? That this isn't that even if this isn't impacting you now, it's likely going to impact a significant portion of your team. Let's begin with discussing the balancing act. How do you begin to integrate this new responsibility into your already bursting, robust calendar of commitments? Daunting, isn't it? Just to even think of that. You're barely getting enough rest. You're barely taking care of your health. You're finding that you don't have the energy to give to your partner and the other important people in your life. And you and I both know that you don't take the time to love on yourself. Let's explore some of the things that you can begin to do to create some space. So, and please let me know in the comments section if there are things that are not on this list that you've found have been particularly helpful, because I know that you all in the trenches have developed some cheat codes, if you will, to be able to navigate this situation and the circumstances. One of the things that you can begin to do is prioritize and schedule. So we're not talking that tired adage of work-life balance, and but really, how do you integrate and begin to create priorities? And those priorities are going to shift daily. Um, one day career is more important, and another day self-care may be important. You may have your whole day planned out and need to reprioritize, and that's okay. So give yourself some grace. Create a daily or weekly schedule that allows you to allocate specific time blocks for each responsibility. Because if you don't, there's going to be some creep and you'll find yourself frustrated and exhausted because you didn't allocate that time. If you don't allocate the time will allocate you. Identify what tasks need to be prioritized at first. So, based upon the urgency and the importance, you can ensure that essential duties are addressed first. One of the things that I like to do is list out everything I have to do today, and then I give it a numerical score between 1 and 3 based upon the priority as well as the urgency. So if I can begin to delay that or delegate that, then I will. Okay. Which brings us right to our next point is to delegate and seek support. And I know as soon as I said that, that somebody is thinking, I don't have anybody to delegate to. Nobody wants to do anything. They're unwilling to help. Okay. Look at family, or, and if possible, you may need to hire support. We had a family member where we weren't able to provide consistent support because we were finding that at times we needed to take a break. And it was okay to hire some short term support to take a break, maybe an hour or two, especially if you are caregiving for someone who lives in your home. To bring somebody in through a trusted agency or a trusted support network that can give you 1 or 2 hours of a break to allow you to get away to take care of an urgent need, or even just to engage in self-care. Do that without guilt. Okay. Lean on your partner if possible, relatives or friends for emotional and practical support when we're discussing caregiving and childcare responsibilities. You have a village, access it. I know sometimes it's easier said than done. I've heard many of my clients indicate that there is a lack of desire to delegate or seek support because they feel guilty that they may not be able to return the favor, or they're not sure that they have the capacity or ability to reciprocate. And so I want to assure you to take this chance because those friends and family members that truly care about you understand, or you can share with them if they don't understand the complexities of what you're facing, and would allow you some grace to be able to reciprocate later if that is even an issue. Many times, that is not a need or desire for anyone in your family or friend group. So let's talk next, as we talk about delegating and seeking support, about boundaries. Now, boundaries are one of my favorite topics. Everybody talks about them, nobody talks about how you actually establish them. And we won't do that today. However, we're just going to mention it. So, being able to establish clear boundaries at work allows you to prevent yourself from being overextended. And I know sometimes that can be an uncomfortable situation. So it's a matter of who wants to experience the discomfort. Is it the discomfort that whoever is trying to delegate this task needs to find somebody else? Or do you want to have this internal angst and resentment because you allowed your boundaries to be broached and you didn't say anything? Don't do that to yourself. Make sure that you communicate your boundaries with your family, spouse, and work to ensure that everyone understands your commitments. Because no one knows exactly what you're experiencing unless you share it with them. And trust me, I know that I've been guilty of that in the past, where I'm resentful of someone else because they don't. I'm like, don't you see that I'm overextended? I'm stressed. I'm worried. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. But they don't know because I didn't share it with them. I'm expecting them to intuitively understand my experience, but they can't do that because everyone has what's going on in their lives. They may be able to sense what's wrong, or and they may attribute it to another reason, or they may not want to get into your personal experiences because maybe you've been a little too independent, and so they've learned the lesson not to query you about what you're going through. Let's talk about another way to cope with um, when you need to care for an aging relative. Creating self care rituals. And no, I don't mean a spa day, getting your toes done, taking some me time. Those are all great things, and I don't want to minimize that. But have a pretty full toolbox that allows you to be able to cultivate and utilize different tools, resources, and strategies that fit your particular need that day. There may be some days when you need physical stress reduction for self care, and that may involve working out, it may involve stretching. Sometimes it's a mental break, and you may need to engage in mindfulness meditation or journaling. So, have a variety of strategies that allow you to care for yourself. And whenever I talk about self care, I think one of the first things I always hear is that I don't have time. There's nowhere in my day that I can fit self care. Please understand that you need to consider it as essential as breathing, as essential as any other responsibility that you have, because self care is going to enable you to be more effective in all of your roles. Trust me, if just try it for 90 days. Schedule in. Start off your week by scheduling in self care. And you can start off slow. It doesn't have to be every day, but scheduling little moments of joy. It's also called in cognitive behavioral therapy is pleasure scheduling. So do that. It's essential and it's important. Another strategy to be able to help you to deal with the stress and burnout, possibly from caring for an aging family member, is ensuring that you are communicating, you're using your words, and adopting some flexibility. I know when I was in the Marine Corps, they used to call it Semper Gumby, um, which means that you're always flexible. And I'm referring back to the maybe you remember the Saturday Night Live character. It was from long ago, John Belushi days, Saturday Night Live, when they had the little green character. And so that's Semper Gumby, always flexible. Maintain some open and honest communication with your partner as well as family members about your schedule and challenges, and possibly the management team or the other executives, your coworkers, your team members, because there's a shift in your capacity and ability to respond. So it's going to be a little different. It doesn't mean that you are less effective or you're less valuable. It just means that your capacity and availability is temporarily shifted. For some people, this is a short-term shift. For others, it may be a little more long-term, but continue to assess the situation every 60 to 90 days, because as you begin to get more experienced in your caregiving responsibilities, you're going to learn different cheat codes and different hacks, and you'll be able to do things a little more efficiently than you were in the beginning. Just like any other skill, you're going to become more efficient. Also, with communication, ensure that you're being flexible and adapting to changes and circumstances while still staying true to your core responsibilities. So many people will just sacrifice or dump, usually things that involve their personal needs and or finances, to meet the needs of others. Ensure that all of the core things that need to be taken care of are addressed. And when you can shift it or delay it, do that. Give yourself that grace. Okay. Remember that finding the right balance may require some adjustments over time, and it's essential to be kind to yourself because you are navigating multiple roles. And I'd love for somebody to share all the different roles and hats that you wear, because I think we forget the magnanimity of all the different roles we have. And when we actually write them out and see all that we're doing, it's really difficult not to give yourself some grace for not being perfect or not being happy all the time, or some things dropping the ball on a few things. I think it was Essence's Caroline Wanga. She had a really interesting concept when she shared that she got out of perfectionism by allowing herself 5 fails a day. And I thought, wow, because she realized that she couldn't be perfect in everything, but she allowed herself that grace to make 5 errors every day and not allowing that to destroy her self concept. So try that out. I'd love to hear if that's successful for you, how you experience that, or whether you've developed some other tools to be able to give yourself some grace. Now, let's explore and begin to outline some possible self care activities, because I said earlier that I wanted you to be able to have a, a relatively robust toolbox with some self care activities that go beyond a spa day or taking a break to do nothing. Those are vital, they are critically important, but there is more. Let's look at first. And since I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, of course, we're going to talk about emotional or mental self care first. So, meditation and mindfulness. Um, these are practices that will allow you some mental space to step away from the focus of what's going on and allow your brain to begin to innovate because you are taking a mental break from looking at the issues and the problems. So you can begin to practice mindfulness exercises, and this will allow you to reduce stress and to improve emotional balance. Now, when we think about mindfulness, some people really have a hard time conceiving what that means. And there's a really good cartoon. You may have seen it on the internet sometimes. Uh, there's a picture of a man and a dog, a little stick figure man, and he's walking his dog in the park. And there are two versions of him. The one is mindful, mindfull, his mindful. And the bubble has where he's thinking about all of his problems and everything that he needs to solve. Doesn't sound very relaxing, does it? It's not. I've done that before and it is not relaxing. And a mindful walk or mindfulness is where you tap in and tune into your environment, your senses, and you get absorbed in that rather than trying to problem solve something because you're not giving yourself a break. And we can talk about that at a later time, exactly some other mindfulness exercises. Uh, Another helpful thing to consider is journaling. Now, of course, I'd love for you to uh, order my Unlocking the Key to Your Authentic Self journal, but you can use it has many scripts to help you to be able to process situations and experiences in your life. However, just having some blank pages and exploring your experiences that you have every day, writing down your thoughts, writing down your resentments, writing down your feelings, and begin to process some of those emotions and gain some clarity. Some days you won't gain clarity, but at least you get those thoughts out of your head so they aren't running on repeat in your head. Another thing to do is deep breathing. When you engage in deep breathing exercise, it allows you to calm your mind and reduce anxiety. Now, one of my frustrations with people engaged in deep breathing is that they tend not to do it correctly. And what I mean by that, most people, when they deep breathe, they'll take in this deep breath, and I don't know, not sure if you can see this well, but my chest expanded. And if you're taking in air into your chest, you're actually, it's not a cleansing breath. You're actually, it could actually allow you to hyperventilate if you continue just to breathe into your chest and breathe out. One of the ways what you should do is bring that air into your diaphragm. So if you put your hand on your chest, put your hand on your stomach, and you breathe in, you can tell which part of your body is expanding. Now, your chest may move, but your abdomen should be expanding. It's the same place sometimes where singers get the ability to draw their breath and their air and then breathe out slowly. This allows your heart rate to go down, decreases your respiration, and produces more calm rather than being having your body stressed and possibly hyperventilating, and or even passing out from just breathing that shallow breath into your lungs. So try that, see if it helps some, and as well as box breathing. But I don't want to belabor deep breathing and doing that. The next thing that you can begin to do is positive affirmations. Okay. And this is where you repeat positive thoughts, positive words, things that motivate you, that will allow you to boost your self esteem and confidence. Because if there's one thing about caring for an aging relative, it can feel particularly hmm, like you're consistently failing because it's a new territory. You're not sure what you're doing, and it can feel incredibly daunting. And especially if you have the grief of seeing this relative decompensate and not be the person that you knew and loved when you grew up, because they're different. And especially when we talk about uh, disorders such as dementia and Alzheimer's, where they may not even know who you are anymore. And some aging relatives even become combative, or they have encapresis or enuresis. That's encapresis is where you defecate on yourself, as enuresis is where you have poor bladder control. And that can be especially frustrating to have to deal with bodily fluids. So all of that can begin to wear on your self-esteem. So engaging in these positive affirmations and restructuring and tackling that inner critic before it has the ability to take hold and change your self concept can be incredibly helpful. Okay. Another thing for your emotional and mental well being is forgiveness. Forgiveness. Like I mentioned early with Caroline Wanga, allow yourself the grace to make mistakes. It doesn't have to be perfect. And you don't have to always feel loving. Some days you're going to be impatient with a person who, with the aging relative who is frustrating you. They don't mean to do it. They're having their own experience of their inability to express themselves, possibly, or the lack of independence. I know that will be especially challenging for me as I begin to age and am no longer independent, because I like to say sometimes that I am pathologically independent. I love my independence ever since I first gained it. It's just been my solace to be able to be independent. So forgiving yourself is incredibly important. The next thing that I want to share with your emotional and mental well being is acknowledging that you're experiencing some resentment. Resentment at the people who said they were going to support, resentment of the people who act like they're always busy, resentment at the situation, sometimes resentment at the creator that this is even happening, or you have to be the person to pick up the slack for this. Um, Resentment towards coworkers, and even um, responsibilities that you have at work, or increasing responsibilities. When you are able to acknowledge some of those resentments, it allows you to be able to, one, identify where your boundaries are being violated. It taps into what your inner experiences is. And if you don't become passive aggressive with that and actually communicate to those people um, what you're experiencing, as well as setting some boundaries, it can be very empowering. So acknowledge and support the emotions that you're having. And of course, being a therapist, I'm going to say therapy. Therapy can be illuminating and really helpful when you're caring for an aging relative, because there may be things that an unbiased perspective will help you to illuminate some new ideas, possibly, or explore some of the roots of some of your angst or the challenges, or just being able to express and vent and to verbalize some of your experiences can be incredibly empowering and invaluable. So you can access therapy sometimes through your EAP so that there's not even a copay. Many jobs have the employee assistance program that will give you anywhere from 3 to 8 sessions, and sometimes people have unlimited sessions throughout the year to be able to address a problem. So check with your insurance, check with your HR because maybe you can get some support for that. Let's talk about physical care. Excuse me. Regular exercise can be very empowering and liberating, and it allows you to release the physical tension and the stress in your body, um, just by having these changing roles and changing experience. I was working with a young man who was married without children. All of a sudden, a family member passed away, and this young man became a father of three all of a sudden and was without a parent. When you talk about stress on his mind, stress on his body, he was able to truly be able to release some of that by engaging in some regular physical exercise. So don't um, don't underestimate the value of physical exercise. It can be quite liberating. And you may or may not want to include a friend. Some people enjoy having friends with them to go through the experience and keep them accountable. Or you may be someone like me. I tend to want to exercise on my own because I want this. I don't want to talk. I want to focus on the exercise, and I want to be able to engage in the type of exercise I want without uh, negotiating with social bonds while doing that. It's going to allow you to boost your mood as well as reduce stress. Sleep. This is the next thing you can do to take care of your physical well being. Adequate sleep w- gives you so many benefits. When you prioritize sleep, it will recharge not only your body, but your mind as well. And if you're having difficulty sleeping, one of the things that I would suggest, I'm not going to say get rid of gaming, get rid of technology, or do anything like that. But if you can put down the technology at least an hour before bed, that will allow your brain to begin to calm down because seeing all those lights is just like bing, 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 bong. It's exciting. It's exciting your brain. And so allow your body to be able to calm down. You may even need to get a sleep study if you're finding that you're not having adequate sleep. If this has gone on before the shift or the change in your dynamics to beginning to care for an aging relative. So if you've always had disruptive sleep, consider a sleep study that may give you some answers and some solutions about how to get more restful sleep so you can get into that REM sleep. Healthy eating. Now, I know this is something that I struggle with periodically, but I know that when I do engage in healthy eating and I have a more balanced and rich diet with uh, rich in nutrients, not rich in fat, but rich in nutrients, it actually begins to support my physical and mental well being. And I do feel so much better when I do so. And many people will opt for the unhealthy options because it saves time. I can't tell you how many times I can remember s- going grocery shopping, having this huge basket of food, and then as I'm exiting the parking lot, deciding, oh, let me go pick up something to eat because now I'm tired from shopping and I don't feel like cooking because I've been walking around the grocery store all day. So don't do that. Do better than me. Don't do that. Um, Now let's begin to get into social self care. What does that look like? Social self care can be connecting with loved ones, especially if there's friends who are distant. I know many of my best friends are not geographically close to me. So I make a particular effort to call, text, communicate, video chat whenever possible because it just fills me up so much. So when you can do that, it's important. Spending quality time with friends and family, that will allow you to strengthen your social bonds. So, and remember, quality time is based upon how you define quality time, you and that loved one. Um, I've heard many times people will poo poo um, time spent together when people are just watching movies together. And they say, you're not really communicating. That's not really bonding. But for some, just being in the room with that person and sharing a laugh and having something that you can talk about later, that can be incredibly bonding. So don't get into the habit of evaluating which, you know, which activity is quality and which activity is not. If it is something that brings you together with a family member or a dear friend, do it. Maybe even it's quality time mentoring. If that gives you uh, a great sense of socializing, do that. Now, I talked earlier about setting boundaries, and just it bears repeating because people don't do it enough. Establish those boundaries that allow you to protect your time and energy in social and occupational interactions. And so you may need to spend some time really evaluating what is it that you need. When were the broaches of your boundaries, where they happened, when they happened. Check in that when your emotions shifted, when you felt more resentful, more angry, because those are clues that your boundaries are being broached. Okay. Spiritual self care. What does that look like? It's different for many people. For some, that means organized religion. Uh, in all its forms. There's not one particular religion that's better than the other or offers more relief than another, but just having that practice. And we talked before, mindfulness practices could also be very spiritual, and they're also sometimes the basis of other religions. Spiritual practices include prayer, meditation, anything that can begin to nurture your inner self, right? Um, you can begin to use biological calming strategies. Uh, that's something like progressive muscle relaxation. Now, in progressive muscle relaxation, you're going through each part of your body and beginning to tense and relax those. Some may want to just do it in your head and go through each body part, but there are many good progressive progressive muscle relaxation audio tapes available on the internet, on YouTube. Um, Try some of those. It can be extremely helpful. It will allow you to begin to reduce some of the physical tension in your body and begin to reduce the stress. You can, let's see, what's another calming technique? Guided imagery. You can also find recordings of guided imagery, whether it is a forest scene, ocean scene, ocean scenes, and essentially it's a description, a very rich description of an environment that you feel is relaxing. Now, of course, if you have a fear of water, listening to a guided imagery recording of the ocean might be a little frightening for you. So you may not want to listen to that. You may be more comfortable hearing some guided imagery about the mountains or the forest. Okay. So any different kind can be helpful for you. Aromatherapy. So, this is where you can begin to incorporate different calming scents like lavender, chamomile, and that can really help you to soothe your nervous system. Another thing to consider is yoga or Tai Chi. Um, this is where you engage in gentle and mindful movement practices to balance your body and your mind. Many times there are classes that are either free, you can have an introductory class sometimes to experience this practice. With Tai Chi, a lot of times it's done in public parks with a group of people, so you can begin to learn it that way, but begin to experiment with things that will allow you to get some physical relief from tension and stress to help you begin to burn out, to prevent or begin to recover from burnout from caring for an aging relatives. Another thing is begin to limit stimulants, reduce or eliminate caffeine and other type of stimulants. Like I said, just to remind you that screens on our phones, on our iPads, on our computers, those create overstimulation. So it it can be just as stimulating, if not more, as a Coke or a cup of coffee. So don't underestimate the power of beginning to limit some of that. Please remember self-care because it is a personal journey, and it's essential to find activities that are meaningful for you and strategies that fit you, that resonate with you and address your specific needs. My self-care routine is not going to fit you. My self-care routine may stress some people out. One of the things that I love, love, love to reduce stress is the practice of Krav Maga. An Israeli fighting defense style, and there's kicking, there's punching, there's getting out of chokeholds, and I just enjoy it. Now, one of my family members, I took them to try to engage in it, and it was not their cup of tea. It was not their jam, and that's okay. But I love it. So, craft a self care routine that's unique from you. Have that toolbox so that it allows you to cut yourself some slack and take a break. Lastly, just remember to be kind to yourself. You are leading people, you are leading teams, and I want you to acknowledge that taking on this additional duty of caregiving, or even if it's someone on your team who is taking on the duty of caregiving for an aging relative, it ain't easy. It absolutely is not easy. Even though you knew that it might be a possibility or an eventuality, you couldn't anticipate, because I know I didn't. You could not anticipate the level of complexity and emotional toll that it would take, both just on the ability to be able to honor and care for an aging relative. Because let's face it, you loved them and you wanted them to be able to have dignity and know that they're being cared for. So I hope you found something valuable today to be able to support you or someone you know who is going through the journey of caring for an aging relative. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm your host, Dr. Kimberly L. Wilson, also known as Dr. Burnout. You can see me every Thursday on E360 TV live at 5 p.m. Pacific time and 2 p.m., excuse me, 5 p.m. Eastern time and 2 p.m. Pacific. And until next time, take care and be blessed.